Whether you're looking to introduce someone new to our fantastic hobby or you're just a bit short on time, there are some awesome war games that can be played from start to finish in 60 minutes or less. In this video, I'm going to give you 4 of the best. Kings of War Ambush is a pared down version of Mantic Games' full-scale ranks and flanks wargame. Instead of vast armies that can cover a 4-foot by 6-foot table, this is a smaller affair, with perhaps 3 to 5 units on each side. You're encouraged to fill the 3-foot by 3-foot board with a greater density of terrain than normal, which nudges games of ambush a little towards skirmish. But I have no problem with that, because it lets me use more of my toys. Kings of War Ambush focuses on troops and regiments, rather than the hordes and legions that you'll find in larger games. But army selection rules are still really straightforward. For each troop or regiment, you can include something more unusual, such as a giant. Most of the rules work the same as they do in regular games of Kings of War, and what changes there are clearly explained on just 2 pages of the rulebook. Just like regular games of Kings of War, it's the base size that's important. That's a troop, and that's a regiment. What you put on there is entirely up to you. I picked these up from eBay, and you can see that these slots allow me to use models from other games in Kings of War. Here I've repurposed some models from my Lord of the Rings armies. Having said that, I do think that we need to acknowledge that the starter sets for Ambush that Mantic produce are really top notch. For a long time, I think Mantic was seen as a poor man's GW, cheap and cheerful models, but not necessarily great quality. Those days are well behind them, and the Ogre kit that you get in this is as sharp and crisp as pretty much anything on the market. The range of kits available is also really impressive, as you can see here. When it comes to timings, Ambush can be played with a chess clock. Simply give each player 30 minutes and you're guaranteed to finish your game in an hour. The next game on my list is also from Mantic. It's The Walking Dead All Out War. Now, a few years ago, Mantic lost the rights to The Walking Dead, but this year they reacquired them and they're re-releasing all the models and adding some new ones. Games of The Walking Dead pit different groups of survivors against each other and the shambling hordes of undead. These aren't controlled by any player, but are part of the environment, moving towards the source of any sounds. This opens up some great tactical options, allowing you to maneuver the walkers around the board so that they get in the way of your opponents. Setting up a game is really straightforward. You assign a points limit, choose your character cards, and then assign them some equipment. At 100 points, you've only got 2 or 3 characters aside, which is great if we want to stay under our 1-hour time limit. The game uses custom dice, which makes all combat resolution really quick. There's also a great scaling mechanic that means whilst it's relatively straightforward to face a lone walker, if they manage to surround you, you can be in real trouble. Best of all, for a game that we don't want to run long, The Walking Dead uses a threat tracker. Now this serves to both ratchet up the tension as the walkers become more and more agitated and places a time limit on the game. If you stick around for too long, everyone will get eaten. Battletech Alpha Strike is a fast-paced wargame based on the venerable board game Battletech, A Game of Armoured Combat. It takes the same great universe, the same fantastic models and the same cool theme, but loses the hexes and gives us this instead. The starter set comes with a great range of models and a copy of the Quick Start rules. Though there's also a Commander's Edition that adds all sorts of extra options, covering scenarios, terrain and special abilities. The conflict between the Inner Sphere, a collection of noble houses that have expanded out into the stars, and the clans, a breakaway group that have now returned, is very well developed. In fact, I've been fighting for House Steiner since I was 14 years old. The stat cards in this game are particularly useful because they're designed to be used with a dry white pen. This allows you to track any damage that your units take, along with the build-up of heat as they fire off their weapons and rush around the battlefield, plus any critical hits that they might suffer. It really speeds things up and makes the game much more manageable. The mech models themselves are enough of a reason to give Alpha Strike a go. They're beautifully crisp and can be painted with simple techniques like washes and dry brushing. And thanks to an upsurge in the game's popularity in recent years, there's now a huge range available at very affordable prices. If you want to get your games done in an hour or less, stick to just a few models per side. I've had evenings where we've played 2 or 3 games like this, usually with some interesting fluff thrown in, and it's been great fun. At the end of the day, who doesn't want to play a big, stompy robot? If you want a great war game that you can play in 60 minutes or less, then Zone Wars is my #1 choice. You can set up the board in 10 minutes or less, get the cards, tokens ready, and drafting forces is an absolute breeze. There are 4 factions in the game, 2 of which come in the core set, and 2 that come in the Robots and Psionics expansion. The Arc Mutants are good all-rounders with a great knowledge of the zone. The Genlab Tribe love to get up close and personal. The Mechatron Hive are particularly tough and well-armed. And the Nova Cult have psionic abilities that allow them to manipulate other models. Whichever force you choose, drafting your forces is as simple as selecting 3 of the 5 models available, as they're all balanced and offer you different strengths and weaknesses. Each model has 2 mutations, one of which is determined randomly. They also have starting gear cards. Once you've got these, you're good to go. A typical game of Zone Wars involves competing for the resources left over from the conflicts that destroyed the world. The zone itself is a fantastic setting, terrifying and bizarre in equal measure. Activations in the game are random, being drawn out of a bag, and that can trigger zone cards. When a zone card comes up, you never really know what's going to happen. Monsters, carnivorous plants, strange geological phenomena. I had a game recently where I spent the first half of the game trying not to get eaten by the monsters that just wandered onto the board. Dice resolution in the game is nice and straightforward. You take a number of yellow base dice according to your attribute, some black dice from the gear you've got, 6s are successes, and 1s are failures that might damage your weapon, that can also give you mutation points that power your abilities. This system keeps things moving along, but also encourages you to get stuck in and take a few chances, which is great if you don't want the game to run long. So those are my choices for games that are great fun to play, but can be completed in an hour or less. If you've got your own ideas, please pop them in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If so, please consider hitting the like or subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon, and until then, keep rolling.